Good evening. My name is Tricia Crowley, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League, the NAACP, and the News Gazette, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. Tonight's forum is for Trustee for the Village of Savoy. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. We've received many questions for these forums, and similar questions which have been submitted may have been consolidated. And consequently, if you submitted a question, it may not be asked in precisely the way you submitted it. Due to limited time, we may not get to all of the submitted questions. After the forum, this video will be available on the League's YouTube channel and Facebook page in a few days. I think we're trying to aim at getting all of the forums out and posted on March 12th. You can also find this video at the Nonpartisan Voters Guide at votechampaign.org. Each forum will be linked to the candidates' information. It will also be broadcast on UPTV, and the UPTV schedule is available on the City of Urbana website. I will be the moderator for this forum. Michelle Cooper is our timekeeper. This election for Trustee for the Village of Savoy is a vote for 3 election with 6 candidates. We will start the candidates in alphabetical order, and therefore, let's see, therefore Mr. Boodle will start first. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask the questions submitted prior to the forum. Candidates will each have 1 minute to answer these questions. And at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And closing will be in the same order as opening, so that the last person in opening will be the last person to speak in the closing. So at this point, I'd like to start with opening statements, and 2 minutes, Mr. Buddha.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Amar Bhuta, and I'm a candidate for the Savoy Board of Trustees. First of all, I'm so grateful to the local chapter of League of Women Voters, NAACP of Champaign County. And what an honor, the organization of great John Lewis, right, as well as our very own News Gazette, for this opportunity to talk directly with our residents. My fellow Savoy voters, for those, Amar is a new name. Here's my story, and here's my commitment to you. I'm a longtime resident of the Savoy area. Both my children, as my wife likes to remind us, were born in Central Illinois, Carl Hospital to be exact. She did her residency there as well. I'm running for this position to ensure that every citizen's voice is heard and represented in the village of Savoy. If elected, I want to make sure that the best decisions are being made to improve and maintain our village while supporting its growth and diversity. And I would also want to make certain that we preserve our unique village charm, the same charm that made me want to live here and raise my own family in Savoy. As your next village trustee, I'm committed to transparent leadership, tackling our unique challenges, being next to larger communities of Champaign and Urbana, honoring those who protect us, committing to promoting and encouraging community engagement by building bridges to civic organizations, and supporting absolute commitment to social justice and equity. Working with private and government sector to make stable public Wi-Fi available for Savoy residents, especially those households with K-12 children, which I'm certain, based on my extensive private sector experience, will also encourage new businesses and employers to expand opportunities for all of us, and so much more can be done with that. Having said that, I do want to state that I'm 100% committed to a balanced budget for the village, and will strive to avoid excessive spending to put your hard-earned tax dollars back in your pockets. But in order to do all of this, I need your vote. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to lead. I'm ready to be your next Village of Savoy trustee. So whether you vote early or whether you vote on April 6th, vote for more for Savoy trustee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buddha. Next, we will go with Mr. Geiger, Aaron Geiger.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you so much for hosting. My name is Aaron Geiger. I'm running for Village of Savoy trustee on the upcoming April 6th election. Originally, I just made a simple pledge to the fire chief, Jason Dillingham, that I would throw my name into the hat. We've had many conversations about safety and emergency services, and just consider him a mentor of sorts in that arena. I'm not a politician. I just believe in community service. I served in the military as a search and rescue swimmer. I'm now a service-connected disabled veteran. So that's kind of had me temper some of my physical aspirations, but I want to give back to the community, so I've offered to serve on this board. My respect goes out to current and past trustees. I know it's, sometimes it's not a fun job, and sometimes you get to do some really interesting things. I'm a father of 5. I work in academia. I have just a few top priorities for Savoy that can be encapsulated with these bullet points. Improving our emergency services. Our top-notch first responders give their all, and we need them to give the support that they need to improve response times. Our families and neighbors will always be the most important commodities, and our responders need more tools. So I pledge to serve our first responders. I want to find creative solutions to improve the viability and potential of our rec center and give it the upcoming new director some leads to build upon. I want to practice some assertive marketing to attract new types of businesses to serve our community, expand our tax base, and not make Savoy look like suburban sprawl. And so many communities seem to fall to that. And I just want to be a good steward for our community, putting safety, health, and well-being first. Again, I'm not, sorry, I lost it here. I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to be fiscally conservative and savvy and to come up with some great new ideas. I'm really good with marrying quantitative data reasoning with qualitative emotional thinking, which kind of puts people right in the middle with our fiscal aspirations and some of the planning that we have, that the board has put forth already, and some of the new projects that I have in mind. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And next we'll go to Larry Camphor. Mr. Camphor.
Hi, I'm Larry Camphor. Thanks for hosting this candidate forum. I think it's great. I've been in our Central Illinois community for over 40 years. I live in Savoy and work in Savoy at the Larry Camphor Gallery. As your trustee, I'll preserve and enhance the gems that make Savoy shine. We have an amazing number of bike trails, walking trails, multi-use pathways, and accessible parks to be discovered among safe and friendly neighborhoods. For example, I'd love to apply for ITEP grants to connect these bike paths and expand an interconnecting network of paths throughout the village. And I will champion quality of life issues for all of us. I've been on the Savoy Plan Commission for a couple of years now, and one idea that I'd love to see is a mixed-use development with shops and living quarters, kind of like a town square as a sort of a gathering place. And after this last year, I think we all would love to have a gathering place, maybe a coffee shop where we can sit and visit one another. I think smart growth is very important for our village. I'll work with developers, village staff, and our community to identify a creative solution that can be implemented thoughtfully. With this, I also hope that we can attract diverse businesses that will broaden our community and our tax base and provide a variety of services. We'll continue to use our tax dollars wisely to maintain those community services. For example, the Savoy Fire Protection and Public Works. And actually, speaking of Public Works, a couple weeks ago, I was walking down from Windsor down Prospect, and the pathway was packed with snow. And then as soon as we got into Savoy, it was a beautifully clear path. The amazing job Public Works did for removal of all the snow. So it was really neat to step into Savoy and see it all gone. Anyway, in my work as a photographic artist, my goal has been to help people recognize and appreciate the beauty all around us. And Savoy is a really great community that embraces safety, low taxes, and quality of life. With that in mind, I'd like to use my creative vision to help move Savoy into the future and be your trustee for the village of Savoy.
After warning you all about how you forget to unmute yourself, I forgot to unmute myself. So next we have Heather Mangian. Ms. Mangian, your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Heather Mangian, and I'm really glad to be here tonight to talk to you all. I want to thank League of Women Voters, AACP, and everybody who made this available. I will say I'm not a practiced public speaker, so we'll just go from here. And I want to introduce myself. Our young family moved to Savoy over 30 years ago, and we joined this really rapidly growing population of Savoy. And over the years, I have contributed to our community through leadership and participation in volunteer organizations. I have sort of a laundry list of those that could be really long, but if you look at my bio on the Savoy website, you can see a few of them. Now, as a long-time resident and a first-term trustee, I care deeply about Savoy, and I want to continue to contribute to the quality of life for Savoy residents in a meaningful and public way. And there's some specific ideas that I had when I ran for my first term as a trustee. And among just taking care of the village and helping to participate with all of those tasks, I was on the steering committee for the bike and pedestrian plan. And once that plan was made, as a first-term trustee, we actually adopted that plan in 2017. And so it was an overarching direction of what needed to be done. The implementation of the plan is begun, but as others have noted, there's quite a bit to do. And part of it will have to do with attracting and obtaining grants. I have a lot of experience with maybe not this kind of grant, but scientific grants. And I've always been a member of successful research teams as a research scientist. So I'm familiar with the grant environment. I also, in my first term, had the idea that it would be an enormous benefit to the neighborhoods of Savoy, who are mainly grouped in homeowners associations, to allow the leaders of those associations to get together and to facilitate just getting in a room. That's a value-added experience, and they can share experiences, and from that help to bring those ideas back to their neighborhoods.
Okay,
so those were
okay.
I'll let it go.
Your 2 minutes, so
Thank you.
will move on. Next, we have Jan Carter Nickum. Mr. Nickum, your opening statement.
Okay, thank you for having us tonight. I appreciate this. My name is Jan Carter Nickum. I have been on the Savoy Board of Trustees since 2005, and we've seen an awful lot of change in those years since 2005 to the present. There's been a lot of growth. When my family and I first moved to Savoy in 1996, Savoy was much smaller than it is now. And it's really been fun to watch the growth and to be part of the growth. And we talk about being fiscally responsible. I think that the 4 boards that I have served on and the 2 mayors that I've served under so far, that we have been very responsible with taxpayers' dollars. And one of the things that comes from my background, I was an educator for 35 years and taught political science at Rantoul High School for 17 of those years, then finished my career in Champaign schools. And during this time, one of the key things that we've been working on behind the scenes is getting an underpass or grade separation built to help serve the people on the east side of the Canadian National Railroad tracks. And I've been working to get a fire substation built on that side of the tracks for about 4 or 5 years now. I've also been to Washington, D.C. at my own expense to meet with Representative Davis and the 2 senators' staffs to talk about the grade separation. And unfortunately, all that federal money has gone to the north of I-80 so far, but we're still working on it. We still have hopes of accomplishing that. As far as growth, one of the things that I want to see happen is controlled growth, but also I want to see that we have clean industry, warehouses, things of that type around the airport that will actually help to offset the tax burden that falls on the homeowners in Savoy. Because I don't want the homeowners to have to bear the entire burden of life in Savoy. So those are my main goals for this next term. And once again, I appreciate being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have AHA Ruggieri. And Mr. Ruggieri, you were opening statement.
Thank you.
And, can you correct my pronunciation? I know that must be wrong.
Ruggieri, yeah,
Ruggieri.
you're pretty close. This is
Okay.
good.
All right, thank
Ruggieri.
you.
Yes, thank you. And, same as everyone, thank you so much for these organizations putting this on, especially during this hard time for us to get out and talk to the people. It's really important that they get their opportunity to hear what we have to say. My name is AJ Ruggieri. I'm seeking my second term on the Board of Trustees. I have lived my whole life here in Central Illinois between Champaign and Douglas County. I've served in many different ways, to include being on the Board of Trustees, and I absolutely love it. I've dedicated my life pretty much to service, and I think the one thing in common is that all of us on the board currently have worked very hard to make Savoy the kind of community that families feel welcome. We've tried to keep the taxes low, been fiscally responsible. And at the same time, we've listened to our citizens and actually done several things that they have brought to our attention. And one of the main things that I'm kind of proud of that I was a part of was paving the path at Colbert Park. Savoy has parks that are above and beyond the other communities. They're really cherished, and we bring in people just because of our parks. And it was great to be able to pave that so that folks could, push their baby carriages and have their kids ride their bikes around that pond. And I live in Savoy with my 3 children and my family, and we love it. We absolutely love it. I'm dedicated to continuing to make Savoy the wonderful place that it is, the hard work that we put into it, and continue to put that hard work into it as we move forward. Some of the things I'm really passionate about is also safety in the village. I'm looking forward to the fire study that we're going to do and to getting some responses so we can move forward and get, what's best for our citizens out there for their safety. And I guess with that, my time is up. I really appreciate being here, and I look forward to my next term. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to questions, and we're going to start with Mr. Buddha and then go in a rotating order. So the first question, why would you be the best candidate for the village board, and touching on your previous involvement with the village and skills and experience?
Sorry, I was muted. So
Yeah.
thank you for the question. My strong background in the technology industry, leading large-scale projects with diverse teams and involvement in community service organization, forms a key proposition of my candidacy. I hope to leverage on my experience to implement new technology-based solutions for the betterment of Savoy residents by maximizing the outreach to marginalized communities. I find technology to be a great equalizer in today's world, which was amply evident during the pandemic, as we all saw. I also strongly believe this is where I can add value for the residents of village, ensuring that a diverse voice with a background expertise that is currently needed, established relationship with the technology industry, nonprofits, and with the new vision of change is present on the board. As a minority myself, I see immense value in creating diverse spaces and plan to do so to help bring new perspectives to Savoy's local government. My experience in working with individual groups from diverse backgrounds will go a long way to ensure we have a strong bridge with all the current representatives on the board and diverse communities that are present in an ever-changing Savoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geiger, why would you be the best candidate for the village board, and touching on your previous involvement with the village and skills and experience?
Thank you. I recognize I'm rather new to this. I'm also somewhat new to Savoy. I've only been here just a few years in 2 different subdivisions. I was a resident of Champaign not too long ago, but I really deeply care about Savoy. I think it's had some wonderful leadership. I think that I do have some new ideas and a voice to bring that really kind of thinks not only on the analytical side, but again, I have a lot of experience in my doctoral program of working with merging humanities or emotional type events with data. So to just make that seem short, people have needs and wants and they have feelings about certain things, and I'm able to kind of look critically at data and put those two together so I can come up with good problem solving solutions. And I have some other ideas to add to some ideas that are already in place, as well as give feedback to things I don't think are trending in the correct direction. Hopefully we can touch on that in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kempfer, do you want me to repeat the question? I'll do that. Why would you be the best trustee for the village board? And can you touch on your previous involvement with the village and skills and experience?
Okay. I think I'd be great on the board. I think one of the biggest things is my background. I had formal training in architecture, and with that, you learn to use both sides of the brain. There's the analytical and the creative. Having moved here back when I was young from Portland, Oregon, I had to look at it as an outsider, and that kind of taught me to look at things fresh. And if you're ingrained in a place too long, you don't see the forest through the trees. So I've kind of, with my photography, that's kind of what I've done. I've kind of looked with a fresh eye at where we are. I've been on the, I've talked to hundreds of residents of Savoy, both with walking door to door, canvassing, and literally just being here for 40 some odd years, talking about their place and trying to understand their sense of place. So I think I'd be really good to apply that in a position where I can make some difference. So that's.
Thank you. Thank you.
Covers some of that.
Ms. Menjian, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. Why do you think you would be the best candidate for the village board? And can you touch on your prior involvement with the village and your skills and experience?
All right. I am a good candidate because of my experience. I have had one term of experience, which isn't the most, but it is. I worked on supporting the updated comprehensive plan, supported the recreation center, Go Savoy Business Cooperative. And I also, I'm really cognizant of time here, supported the information-based planning for the Savoy Fire Department, which was helping to choose the best agency to look at their data and give us a hard analysis back. I am a research scientist in nutrition, so I'm familiar with numbers, spreadsheets, and analytics that way. But I'm also a mom of 3, and we use all Savoy's parks, and I'm a runner in the Second Wind Running Club. So I see all our pedestrian pathways and streets up close. So this helps me. Also, my neighbors just talk to me. And when we go door to door canvassing, people talk to me too, and I listen.
Thank you. Mr. Nickum, why would you be the best candidate for village trustee, touching on your involvement with the village and skills and experience?
Okay. Well, I think my experience, my background would be very beneficial. I've served for about 15.5 years as a liaison to the Planning Commission, representing the village board on the Planning Commission. So I've been involved with several of the subdivision developments. Also, I was an unofficial liaison to the fire department for many of those years up until COVID hit. And we were instructed not to go to fire department meetings unless we were actually first responders. So I've honored that and stayed away for almost a year now. But prior to that, almost 15 years of monthly fire department meetings, knowing the ins and outs of the operation of the fire department. A very large supporter of the fire service over those years. And we have had a very successful volunteer fire department. We are studying some possible changes in the near future. Also, I've been to Chicago many times for IML trainings and meetings, to Springfield for Illinois Municipal League meetings. And I have a very good rapport with local, state, and federal representatives' offices and the local senators and representatives themselves, as far as helping to keep them in touch with what's going on in Savoy and things that Savoy could really benefit from.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggieri, why do you think you would be the best trustee for the village of Savoy, and touching on your prior involvement with the village and skills and experience?
Well, thank you once again. I don't know that I would consider myself the absolute best, but at least in the top three. So we only have to vote for three. But I think the experience, I think the board stands for itself. I've been on the board for the last 4 years. We've been able to accomplish so much. We have so much in the works right now that we're eager to get to and eager to help push through. That's going to be a benefit to all the citizens. I mean, if you look at the change that's occurred in the past 4 years, I've been a part of that. And I think that kind of stands for itself, and I'll continue to work hard. I'll continue to push those kinds of things through so that we can have the beautiful community that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geiger, on the ballot for this election is the question of home rule for Savoy. What is your position on home rule for Savoy?
At the moment, I know this is really important to Savoy. At the moment, I am leaning against, and I'll tell you a couple reasons why. I recognize I'm a citizen, but I'm also putting myself in the position of running for trustee. And I do know that the home rule would give a little bit too much power to elected officials, depending on how you look at it. So I feel like that would be a little bit of self-dealing. So by that position alone, I am abstaining from that. I would not vote. From leaning against, there are other ways to look at building some revenue, like we were talking about the motor fuel tax and having some of our own agency over these taxing rules. But there's also like the legislation, the House bill that's coming up in the state of Illinois that would allow non-home rule municipalities like Savoy to raise taxes on fuel. So there are other creative solutions to this. I think we're not ready for that just yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Camphor, what is your position on home rule?
Well, home rule is kind of a double-edged sword. It looks as though you can get tax money, and it's been promoted a little bit that you can get tax money from people from outside of Savoy, and that money can go to Savoy, say with the gas tax. But the issue is, once you give that power to a small group of people, it's really tempting for them to start using it and taxing and spending it wherever they want. And I would like to see the people of Savoy decide if they want to raise their tax. You know, I think that double-edged sword is kind of the biggest issue for me. Either way, by the time we get voted in, the trustee, it will be decided. It'll either be passed or not. If it is passed, I think it's even more important than ever that you get trustees that are fiscally conservative, that will not spend more than they have. So that's
okay. Thank you. Ms. Mangian, what is your position on home rule for Savoy?
Well, being the researcher I am, when home rule came up and the thrifty person that I am, I saw that there was funding from perhaps motor fuel tax that other communities captured and Savoy was not. And we have plenty of roads that could be used in an effective way to repair or replace. So I did a deep dive, or as deep a dive as I could, into studies that compared communities in Illinois that were home rule versus non-home rule. And there's at least three publications, one 2011, one 2002, and one 2001, that say that taxes don't really go up in home rule versus non-home rule, property taxes and some others. And that communities with home rule actually do better when hard times come because they have more flexibility for their own outcome. Savoy is based on local control. Homeowners associations have to control their commons areas. And I think we can make good decisions. And I'm very thrifty. I don't want the money to escape that we could have on motor fuel tax. So I'm leaning for it, and backed by my research into the matter, my own.
Okay,
Research.
thank you. Mr. Nickum, what is your position on home rule for Savoy?
Well, I actually, of the 6 candidates, might have the most background on this. About 6 or 7 years ago, I started working with IML, the Illinois Municipal League in Springfield, on the topic of capturing 3 or 4 cents per gallon of motor fuel tax for the village of Savoy. And we actually, through our work with the Municipal League and their staff, created a piece of legislation that got to the final day of the legislative session 2 years ago, and was going to allow communities of 5,000 to 25,000 to collect 3 cents per gallon for street repairs. And the problem was that the former Speaker of the House added 1 sentence the last day of the session and said it had to be in counties of over 3 million. So we got knocked off the ballot. But just this past year, we had to spend over $1 million to replace 1 street in 1 neighborhood that has ASR concrete, which is concrete that falls apart from within because of chemical reactions. And we have streets all over the village of Savoy that face these futures. And with the option of getting home rule, motor fuel tax, capturing that money, we could then repair those streets without having to go into our regular budget and take money away from other things, recreation, parks, fire department, public works, and take money that's actually being paid, in some cases, many cases, by people visiting our community, going to University of Illinois events or traveling through the area or shopping, that would buy gasoline in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Nickum. So, Mr. Ruggieri, what is your position on home rule?
So I agree with much of what the other current trustees have said. It is kind of a double-edged sword, and a lot of the material that's been out there right now is kind of a scare tactic. Having been on the board and seeing, Savoy prior to that, we have been very fiscally responsible, and we do need creative ways to help take care of our streets, because we can't wait for the state. We can't wait for the federal government. Obviously, that has not worked so far, and I don't think it will into the future. So we need the extra tools in our toolbox to be able to use. This idea that we're going to go crazy and start taxing everything just really is not plausible. It's more of adding extra tools to our toolbox so we can do the best for our community and actually keep taxes lower on the property side and look for other ways to get taxes to help us take care of our roads. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Budo, what is your position on home rule?
Thank you. I think one of the benefits of going last is I can almost summarize what everyone else has contributed and reiterate again, it is a double-edged sword, but based on the trust that the voters are imparting to this important Savoy trustee position, I believe the extra value of the motor fuel tax, I think mentioned on several challenges in repair of the roads, and I can see several other opportunities, especially in a time where actually our revenues declined, like pandemic, which can again happen, hopefully not, but something like that. It gives us a bit more flexibility. It is an opportunity to take more control of the local government and to align our delivery of objectives to what the voters are looking for. So more flexibility is definitely the reason I'm actually supporting the idea. And I do believe, if I may add, coming in from a different perspective, from a different background, it is all more important that if something like home rule gets approved, that we have a more diverse representation on the trustee board. It will go a long way in impacting the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the next question, we're going to start with Mr. Camphor. The future of the Savoy Recreation Center has been discussed much this last year, including turning it over to the Stevens Family YMCA of Champaign. Do you support this or do you not?
Well, yeah, we just recently lost our director of the rec center. I think rec center's one of those gems that we have that we can call Savoy. The biggest thing is we need to be able to make that self-sustaining. And so that's a financial issue. I think it would be a shame to turn it over to an outside entity, because I think being a local, being a village run center is really important. So obviously we could look at, I think it's important to look at it and kind of see what we could do. Maybe there's kind of a hybrid system where we can get some management, but I think we need to look at all sides of that. I can't say without seeing all the data what exactly what I would do, but I do think of that as our Savoy Rec Center, and I think we need to keep that.
Okay, Ms. McGeehan, discuss the future of the Savoy Rec Center.
The Savoy Rec Center is a real community place. I joined the rec center when I became trustee. I had membership before, but didn't go very much because I also work out on campus facilities. But I was surprised at the number of Savoy residents that go by in the spirit of community there. I support it being, it was a gift to Savoy, and it is really a gem for Savoy. When we discussed it, the YMCA, many people from the community discussed what was good about it, and all of those statements fell right into the mission statement. When we look at the money associated, taken in by the rec center compared to its expenditures, it was taking in more and more money, and it was actually well within what was projected for and expected for that facility, and it was gaining more income each year. So I see it is really also a place that people can go, and they can rent a room there and we sometimes have community meetings there, and so that's great.
Okay.
I had a different picture in the background, so I think it flipped to Larry.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Nickum, about the Savoy Rec Center.
Yes, well, I have a long history at the Savoy Rec Center. It's in my backyard. And when I moved to the community, it was the Methodist Church for several years until the Methodist Church built out west of town. And at that time, we had no idea what the building was going to be used for. There were many choices that were options. Another one of my neighbors was very, very generous, and he bought the building and threw in some money to help offset or defray the cost of making it the Savoy Rec Center. And the Savoy Rec Center is not a business per se. It's not intended to make money. It's intended to be an amenity for the citizens of Savoy and the members of the Recreation Center. And the most recently departed director of the Rec Center, Mr. Martin, who went to work at the Leonard Center, he had everything going in the right direction until COVID hit. And now, of course, we're dealing nationwide with the impact of COVID. So hopefully we can get someone in that will continue the growth that he promoted, and the Savoy Rec Center will continue for many, many years to come to be the Savoy Rec Center and not to be farmed out to some other organization.
Thank you. And Mr. Ruggieri.
Yes, thank you. Like many have said, the Savoy Rec Center is a gem that Savoy has. It's one of the few things that our community offers that many other communities of our size just simply don't have or can't offer. I feel strongly that Savoy should continue to support it. I can't say that it's not without its challenges, especially since we've just had about a year of very difficult times. But to provide that amenity to our citizens is the utmost importance in my view, because our parks and recreation are one of the best things that we have for our citizens. It's right down in the middle of some of our neighborhoods. A lot of our citizens use it. It is a great place for community gatherings. I've been there several times myself to have meetings, and it definitely should continue to be part of Savoy, and that's what I'm going to fight for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buddha.
Okay. So in terms of the need of rec center and the utilization of rec center, so I'm with everyone else. This is something that we, as the residents of Savoy, extensively use, and it's very popular. You know, I know we have used it to rent out for some community gatherings as well. But I do want to, I think Larry mentioned it as well, I do want to evaluate a bit further in terms of what kind of proposition it is. I understand it's not like they want to take over and shut it down. It's more of a, if indeed it's a more of a win-win proposal, so I'll be open to have a look at it while supporting the need to have the current rec center in place. In terms of governance, I think it's very good to know that we do not look at community service as a profit loss entity. That's how most community services should be looked at. But I'll be open to have a look at it while proposing to, or at least supporting the current rec center to remain as is, as long as the opportunity is a win-win for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geiger.
I just want to echo, I feel a sense of ownership, and I think it seems like a collective agreement that the Savoy Rec Center is kind of like a local pride. To keep it here, it would set a precedent for other people to come to keep things local, keep things, traditionally Savoy. I recognize that I believe a study was done, and it was losing or being subsidized, $500,000 a year, roughly. And it wasn't meant to be self-sufficient, like one of the other trustees had mentioned, but we can make it trend more toward the green. I think we can take better ownership. We have a new, possibilities that are coming up on the horizon with director, or I know that you talked to the YMCA, and I also started thinking outside the box, such as with USA Gymnastics hosting their major events here instead of possibly like the Leonard Center, and just make it more of the family-friendly place that it was meant to be, and just keep it Savoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGann, we'll start the next question with you. Do you support Savoy going to a full-time fire department? And if so, how would you fund it?
I reserve judgment on what the Savoy Fire Department should have until we get the data back from the information-based study. We know that we need change, but to say it should change one way or t'other is really premature until we get this study in. And I did vote for a very comprehensive, rigorous study of the Savoy Fire Department. I support the firefighters. I attended their monthly meetings until COVID hit, and I'm all for a strong fire department. But I think we should make information-based decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Nickum, do you support the Village of Savoy going to a full-time fire department? And if so, how would it be funded?
Well, as Heather mentioned, we are doing a study right now, a very expensive study. Our initial proposal was for a $20,000 study. And what was presented to us here recently was a $72,000 study, which I was not real happy about, but I do want to see a fire substation built on the east side of the railroad tracks, and that's part of that study. But we have had a lot of history in Savoy dating back to 1956. Savoy was created because of a volunteer fire department. And until about a year and a half ago, we had what was known as one of the best volunteer fire departments in the state of Illinois and maybe in the nation. And our ISO ratings are very low, very competitive, which helps everybody's insurance rates. But there has been a movement to look at a full-time fire department, but a lot of people do not understand the extreme cost, even if it's minimally staffed with 4 or 5 full-time firefighters in a hybrid system with the rest being volunteers. So yes, we do need to see what the study says, but I think that just like in Rantoul's had a volunteer fire department forever. And I think a volunteer fire department can work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nickum. And next, Mr. Ruggieri, your position on the fire department.
I'm a very strong supporter of all of the measures for safety in the village of Savoy. I'm very close with many of the leaders over at the fire department. I've been intimately interested in this particular question. That's one of the reasons why I think that we are spending a little bit more for that better fire study so that we can get really, really good information to figure out what would be best for the citizens. Obviously, we want to make sure that everybody lives in a safe community. Obviously, the village of Savoy is growing and the need for that safety is going to grow. But I kind of side with Heather. I really need to see the information to figure out what at this point is best for the village. You know, if it's a situation where we don't necessarily need one right now, we just have to expand, and I'm all for that. If it's a situation where we need to look at a full-time fire department, then I'm all for that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Buddha, your position on the fire department.
Yeah, being a spouse, a husband of a first responder, father of two young children, I would like to jump and say, yes, we need more safety. We need more a new or a full-time fire department, as Mr. Nickham also mentioned. But I'm also have an extensive engineering background. I was a project manager for a long time, and I teach data analytics. So without having, and from what I understand, and I've read about it as well, there's a fire study that's already been proposed, or it's being undertaken. Without looking at the data, I would not commit to it. We do all understand, I think we all agree that more safety is good for us. Village is expanding. We want to ensure that we have the right services for all of our residents, but without looking at the numbers, and maybe that's where the discussion of the home rule would become even more important, because obviously there will be costs associated with it as well. But as of now, I'm not committed to it unless I see the numbers. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Geiger.
I'm very passionate about this, so much so that I've talked extensively with the first responder community. I am from a first responder community. I was in search and rescue. So I really understand the critical issue of timing and response times. And I don't think people are realizing that all it takes is one bad event to happen in Savoy to really stain this town and really hurt this town. And we're kind of facing that right now. We're not Rantoul. We are past, I think, the volunteer aspect of this community is growing significantly. It looks like it's going to keep growing even more rapidly. Champaign is growing. People have expectations of a professional fire department. I understand that does cost money, but before, instead of getting into the nuts and bolts of paying for it immediately, I just want people to know that these first responders also get only $10 to get to one call. For every call they do is $10 to put their lives on the line. So I'm here to kind of stand up for them and see what I can do to bend our will towards making Savoy safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Camphor. Mr. Camphor?
There we go. I was muted. The simple answer is that we'll get the $72,000 study done in about 5 months. And then we can make a determination, I think. But you have to remember, I mean, people have to think about, you're in, say, Prairie Fields, and there's a fire. The engines, the fire department has to go across the tracks. So first of all, if there's a train, you're out for so many minutes. We're working on trying to get the underpass at Curtis Road. That's one thing. Having possibly a hybrid system, maybe having a full-time fire department chief at the station all times, or someone at the station, that might be a good idea. Just a couple of minutes, I agree, a couple of minutes without a response, that could be the end of a house. So really, we have to look at this very, very carefully in about when we get the study back.
Okay. I have a number of other excellent questions, but we're running short of time here, so we're going to start closing statements. 2 minutes for closing statements. We start with Mr. Budo.
Thank you. I would like to start out by congratulating tonight's organizers for providing an excellent environment in these current circumstances to provide us all with an opportunity to share our thoughts, our vision, and our direction for the voters of Savoy. I would also like to show my appreciation to all the current trustees of the village and those aspiring to serve in the future. I strongly believe that those who take time from their personal lives to serve the community truly deserve our support and appreciation. I really mean it. We will probably never agree on all the directions and the decisions that we take, but my commitment is to always look for a win-win approach in order to serve our residents. In the end, that's all that matters. To the voters of Savoy watching this event on YouTube or other social media sites, I would like to again reiterate my firm commitment to a more representative local government aligned to your aspirations. I kicked off this effort as a true people-powered campaign by selecting to highlight those agenda items that matter the most to you. Providing public Wi-Fi across Savoy, ensuring continued care of our public parks, access to COVID-19 resources where possible, and support of social justice causes, absolute commitment there, while building bridges to all segments of the community will be my focus if I get elected. My experience in the corporate sector, right here in the Champaign-Urbana area, and my deep family roots demand that I do my best to give back to this community that has given us so much, and in doing so to ensure that those in need are taken care of first and foremost. I will again humbly request your vote on April 6th and a promise to always honor my commitments if I get elected. Vote now, vote early, vote tomorrow for Savoy. Thanks and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geiger, you're closing.
I'd like to echo the sentiment from Mr. Buda when he was saying that you've created just a wonderful environment for us to discuss these issues in. That was very well said. I think it's indicative of the community that we live in. It's not often that I've been able to say, I've lived in 13 states, and this is by far the most comfortable, most secure, most, I don't know, I just feel so good raising my children here. I have 5 children, and I can let them run around, and I have different people looking out for them, and we're looking out for one another, and I can see, you know, all the same familiar faces going to Carrie Busey. I'm very thankful. So I'm here to give back. And if I am not elected, I will still continue to give back to this community. And I do think it's been in good hands in many different ways through the, previous leadership, some of the current leadership. And so I do have much respect for them. There are some nuances that I think we can improve upon. And hopefully I've conveyed some of those that I can elaborate on further in the future. Especially paying more attention to, we do have the rec center issue, we do have home rule, we do have our first responder and the fire study. There's a lot to be kind of groomed out of that. So I'm looking forward to possibly taking part in those debates and to really, again, look at the data, but also consider, the feelings and the hearts of my neighbors. I have a lot of creative ideas. I have served in marketing. I do a lot of research through my job. I do really want to put those skills to the test to kind of come up with new options that are inexpensive or they're just fun for the, Savoy. We're like in spring, everything's just starting to bloom in our town. So I'm really looking forward to what's to come, and I hope to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Camphor, you're closing.
You did? Okay. First, I'd like to thank the current trustees for their great work bringing us to this point in Savoy. We've talked about a bunch of things. Overall, I bring a common sense and creative approach to any issue as I have for the last 40 years as CEO of my business. As your trustee, I'll work with our new administrator to identify and implement new technology and leveraging existing technology to more efficiently run the village. A lot of skills that I've had to master to run my gallery will come in handy as your trustee. In addition to the photography that I love, I've had to learn marketing, finance, accounting, procurement, production, customer service, human resources, and logistics. I was trained in architecture. I learned that critique from others is as an important part of the creative process, and I embrace that. Most important, I just know how to get things done. I've recently been named Rotarian of the Year due to my leadership on programs and founding of the Veterans Day 101 event back in 2011, and it's in its 10th year. Very successful year. I'm an elected board member of the Savoy Business Co-op. I conceptualized and worked with the committee and Go Savoy to create the Human Festival of Savoy in order to bring people together to solidify community spirit. And that's something that's dear to my heart. I live with my wife, Elena, also dear to my heart, who works at the U of I, our dog Milo, and sometimes when we're really lucky, our two young adult children, Anna and David, come home. In summary, over the past few months, I've met so many people canvassing neighborhoods and walking door to door, finding out what they're interested in. I can see that people here, to echo Mr. Geiger's point, people here are very happy, they're friendly, and they love living in Savoy, as do I. I've got the passion, the energy, and experience to successfully represent people of Savoy as village trustee, and it would really be my honor to be your representative.
Thank you. Ms. Mangian.
Okay, thank you once again for facilitating this discussion tonight. I have to say that the possibilities for growth in Savoy are abundant. And as a village trustee, I seek to achieve the best outcomes for our residents, neighborhoods, schools, and businesses. In a second term, my priorities will be strategic growth, fiscal responsibility, infrastructure, and connecting our community. Those will continue to be my top priorities. I bring a nature to look into subjects very deeply. My career in science has always worked in teams to accomplish new novel accomplishments, achievements. And so I do like to work in teams. I do respect having ideas coming from various places. I've been a homeowners association president at the Arbors for 12 years. Come and walk through our commons. You'll see what, how things can be taken care of in a creative way. And I think we'll have a very tender time here recovering from pandemic and helping our businesses come back to their feet after that time. And there will be change for the fire department as an outcome of the studies that we've authorized. So we have a lot of important decisions in the next term. And I really would like to further the bike and pedestrian plan, get it further, because that is part of our connecting with each other in Savoy. We will also see a fiber optic network come to almost all of Savoy within the next term for trustees. And that accomplishment has been made through communication and just teaming to get things done. And that impacts every resident and every business. And so I just want to say that Savoy is unique. It has a certain vitality and a friendliness, and also the wealth of ideas because of where we're placed. So I hope that you think about me when you vote, and I hope that you do vote.
Thank you. Mr. Nickum.
Yes, 16 years ago, I was part of Vision 2020 program for Champaign County, where we looked at many aspects of life in the future. Of course, 2020 has come and gone now, but it's really interesting to see what we proposed, what happened, and what we still have to achieve for Champaign County. I also was a very integral part of getting the IHSA state basketball tournament back to State Farm Center, and worked directly with that organization for the last couple of years, trying to get that. I've been very involved with Champaign Unit 4 schools and their schools of choice program, and getting the school sited in Savoy. That was an empty lot when I started on the board, and now Carrie Busey, it was a very vibrant school in the neighborhood and in the community. We also now are looking at what to do about a middle school option, what to do about possibly a South Side high school option for Unit 4 kids and Savoy students. So lots of things there. Also, we're looking very seriously at how to negotiate with Champaign with boundary agreements to the west, and with Champaign and Tolona with boundary agreements to the south for continued growth of the village of Savoy. So I hope that you give me an opportunity to continue my work. I think that I've been very successful in what I've done over the last 16 years, and I'd like an opportunity to have 4 more years to do that. So please vote for Jan Carter Nickum on April 6th or sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ruggieri, your closing.
I want to thank you again for this wonderful forum and the opportunity to be able to speak to everyone that's watching this and will watch this. Clearly, we have some great candidates here. I feel very honored to be among them. And as I said before, I've dedicated my life to service. I have an invested need to support Savoy and to be here and to help as much as I can to continue the progress that we've already made. I think the best part of my history is the last 4 years, being able to work on the board and all the things that we've accomplished. It would be really great for us to continue that movement forward, for us to continue the projects that we're in right now. The fire study is very important. We've done a lot of studying with that. Within the next 5 months, we're going to get that, and we're going to have to make some decisions. So I've been there. I've been there from the beginning to understand that completely. I want to continue our fiscal responsibility. I want to continue our responsible growth in Savoy. And I want to continue to listen to the citizens of Savoy. And even though it may be small things that they need or want, I want to be there to hear that and to incorporate that into our plan, incorporate that into what we're trying to do. Savoy is my home. I have my business here. I'm really all about it. I'm really all about supporting it and helping us continue this wonderful, diverse community that we have. My wife loves living here. My children love living here. The schools are wonderful. It's really, I feel, my job to continue to help and make sure that we keep all of that the way it is, and we keep it responsible with the growth that we have. So thank you once again for being here. You have to vote for 3 of us. Just, I hope you don't forget to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of the candidates for their cooperation with this forum. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, the NAACP, and the News Gazette for sponsoring this forum. Thanks to our timer, Michelle Cooper, who has kept us on schedule. And a very special thanks to John Von Berens, who have put this series of forums together. Just a reminder, it's not too late to register to vote for the April 6th election. Information is available on the county clerk's website. Please vote by mail, vote early, or vote on April 6th. Because turnout is expected to be light, please check your polling place for April 6th, but vote. You can visit votechampaign.org for more candidate information and for finding this forum after it's posted in a couple days. Well, thank you very much for participating.